Hi everyone! Hello dear learners! Welcome to another video lesson. This time, we'll be talking and learning about pronouns. If you're a beginner, this is a good introduction and overview of what pronouns are and how the different types of pronouns are used in different contexts. If you're an intermediate or advanced learner, view this as a mini refresher course on pronouns. After all, learning never stops, am I right? At the end of the video, you will be able to test your understanding as you answer the exercises we prepared for you. So, shall we begin? To guide you through our discussion, please have a look at the outline. As you can see, we'll be touching on several types of pronouns in this video. Let's first define what pronouns are. So, a pronoun is a word that is used to replace a noun to avoid repetition and provide a smoother flow in writing. Instead of repeating the same noun in different sentences, we can substitute it with a pronoun so the sentences will read better and will be easier to understand. Note, however, that the important rule to remember is to use a pronoun only when it's clear which noun you are pertaining to. Otherwise, the reader will be confused. What do we mean by that? Let's look at some examples. In the first pair of sentences, Phoebe baked a cake. Phoebe gave the cake to her mom. What are the nouns that are repeated? There's Phoebe and there's the cake. How can we improve the sentences then? Right, by using pronouns. So we use she for Phoebe and it for cake. Now let's check if this follows the rule. Is it clear that she refers to Phoebe? Yes, it is. In the first sentence, there's only one person mentioned, and Phoebe is a girl, so she is accurate. Also, the only other noun in the first sentence is cake, and it is a thing, so the pronoun it is correct. For the second sentence, we use they to substitute for children, and yes, it followed the rule. You agree? Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel, The Right Guide, so you can continue your English writing journey. We cover basic and advanced English grammar, as well as specialized lessons to help you succeed from the classroom to the boardroom. That is from school, college, or university to your job hunting and even up to your chosen profession. We have videos on academic writing, resume writing, business writing, and many others. So do watch out for more videos. Let's now move on to the types of pronouns. The first and most common type is what we call personal pronouns. This type of pronouns is used to substitute a person or a group of people. Remember the first example earlier? We replaced Phoebe with she, so she is an example of a personal pronoun. Personal pronouns are further classified into subjective, objective, and possessive. Let's go through each one of them. First, subjective pronouns are used when the pronoun is the subject of the sentence, meaning it is the one that is being talked about. Objective pronouns, on the other hand, are used when the pronoun is the object of the sentence or the receiver of the action. Meanwhile, possessive pronouns are used to show ownership, possession, or attribution. Here are the different personal pronouns. As you can see, they change depending on the context. For instance, I if subjective, me if objective, and my or mine if possessive. Same with you, he, she, and it. For plural pronouns, we, then us, then our or ours, and they, them, and theirs. Okay, let's go over the sentence examples here. Mark and Lisa are going to the movies. Mark and Lisa are the subject as they are the ones being talked about here, right? So the pronoun to be used should be subjective and plural. In that case, which one should be substituted for Mark and Lisa? We or they? If you said they, then you're correct. So the next sentence now reads, they want to see the latest action film. Next. Andrea asked for your contact number yesterday. Is Andrea the subject or object? Yes, you're right. Andrea is the subject. Given that, we use she and not her or hers as a pronoun. So it's she wanted to call you, not her wanted to call you. Okay, let's look at more sentence examples to better understand the proper use of personal pronouns. What can you say about the first pair? Why is the first sentence wrong? Donna and me are at the mall right now. What's wrong here? It's because Donna and the other person are the subjects, so the pronoun to be used should be a subjective pronoun. We know that me is an objective pronoun, so using that in this case is incorrect. Instead, we use I, and the correct sentence should be Donna and I, not me, are at the mall right now. Let's analyze the next pair. Brian is a subject, so the pronoun to be used as substitute should also be subjective. Is him subjective? Correct, it's not. It is actually objective. So him and his friends is wrong. Instead, it should be he and his friends. Now here's a common mistake. The correct way of saying this comparison is, my younger brother is taller than I or than I am. It's not taller than me. And for the second set, it should be, I went to the new Apple store, not me went to the new Apple store. That just sounds weird, doesn't it? Okay, let's get going. Now we turn our attention to objective pronouns. The first sentence reads, where are Christy and Denise? So here, Christy and Denise are the subject. However, in the second sentence, they become the receiver of the action instead of the subject. They are the ones being invited, so they now are the object. So we say, did you invite them to the party? Them is the objective pronoun. We don't say, did you invite they? Now, if Christy and Denise were the ones inviting people to the party, then they would be the subject and we would say, they invited everyone here. Do you see the difference? In the third sentence, on Lizzie's first year here, Annie offered to teach her English. We use her to refer to Lizzie because Lizzie is the object or the receiver of the action. What's the action? Being taught English by Annie. We don't say Annie offered to teach she English because she is a subjective pronoun, while her is an objective pronoun and is the correct one to use in this case. Let's look at a few more examples. My grandparents looked after my siblings and me. Why me and not I? Because my siblings and I are the object, not the subject of the sentence. My grandparents is the subject, that's why we use an objective pronoun. Me instead of I, which is a subjective pronoun. In the second sentence, Craig bought her an expensive gift. Craig is the subject and the lady is the object. So we use an objective pronoun. So it's her instead of she. The same principle applies to the third sentence. This should be a great opportunity for you and him, not he. Him is an objective pronoun while he is a subjective pronoun. It can be quite confusing at first, but with practice, you'll be able to determine which pronoun to use easily. To help you further, here's a quick tip. When deciding which pronoun to use, ignore the other noun or pronoun and try sounding out each option with the rest of the sentence. How do we apply this? Let's look at two examples here. Angela and, is it him or he, painted the wall. To find out the correct answer, let's follow the tip. We remove the other nouns and pronouns, then sound out each option. In this case, we have two options, him or he. So is it him painted the wall or he painted the wall? Which one makes more sense? The second one, right? He painted the wall. So the correct sentence is, Angela and he painted the wall. Next, the cookies were made for you and is it me or I? Let's see. The cookies were made for me or the cookies were made for I? Do the sound test. Which sounds right? If you said the first one, you're correct. Therefore, the proper sentence is, The cookies were made for me. Are you able to follow? Everything okay so far? If not, feel free to reach out to us so we can assist you further. Leave a comment below, message us, or email us for your questions and clarifications. At this point, we'll focus our attention on possessive pronouns. As mentioned earlier in the video, possessive pronouns are used to show ownership, possession, or attribution. Look at the first example here. Did you buy a new calculator? I think yours is the latest model. Yours is used to show that the person you're talking to owns the calculator. Next, the farmers harvested the field yesterday. These crops are theirs. So whose crops are those again? Yes, the farmers, because they were the ones who made the harvest. And for the last one, whose writing are we pertaining to? Did you say Jones? Yes, that's correct. Now, here's a rule to remember. Use possessive pronouns before gerunds. If this is your first time to hear about gerunds, let me explain it for you, okay? Gerunds are verbs or action words, usually ending with ing, that are used as a noun in a sentence. So they don't function as verbs. They look like verbs, but they are taken as a noun. Some examples: swimming, diving, reading, and many more. Now, how do we apply this rule? Let's analyze the two pairs of sentences here. Can you find the gerund in the first one? Yes, it's tagging or tagging along. Good job. Now, the rule says we should use a possessive pronoun, not a subjective or objective pronoun. That's why the correct way of saying it is, can you please tell me why you don't like his tagging along? His, not he or him. Is that clear? Okay, on to the next example. The gerund here is using or using my clothes. So we should use a possessive pronoun before it, right? Thus we say, I resent your using my clothes without my consent, not you using my clothes. Okay? Next one, demonstrative pronouns. What are demonstrative pronouns? They are words used to refer to a noun with respect to its position, meaning how near or far it is from your reference point, which can be either space or time related. You can determine the correct demonstrative pronoun depending on whether the noun to be replaced is singular or plural. Also, if it is first, second, or third person. First person if the object is near the speaker or is held by the speaker. Second person if the object is nearer the listener. And third person if the object is far from both the speaker and the listener. Having said that, here are the demonstrative pronouns used in the English language. There are only 4 of them actually. This, these, that, and those. Use this guide to help you identify which one to use to write sentences. Now for some examples. We ordered burgers and fries for lunch. We enjoyed those so much. The demonstrative pronoun used is those, and this refers to burgers and fries. Those because the noun is plural and is in the third person, meaning it's not near the speaker or listener. Perhaps the speaker was referring to a meal they had earlier, so he or she does not have the burgers and fries with them anymore. Next, I bought a blue dress last night. This is my new favorite. The pronoun this refers to the blue dress. Perhaps she was holding it while telling her friend about it. That's why she used this. Also, the noun is singular, so the correct pronoun is this, not these. We now move on to relative pronouns. Okay, so relative pronouns are used to introduce dependent clauses and connect them to the main or independent clause in the sentence. If you're not familiar with clauses, let's do a quick review. What is a clause? A clause is a group of words that has a subject and predicate, and it is the building block of a sentence, meaning a sentence always contains a clause. Now, there are 2 types of clauses, independent and dependent. As the name implies, an independent clause can stand alone because it has a complete thought. It does not rely on another clause to complete it. A dependent clause, on the other hand, is the opposite. It does not have a complete thought, so it needs to be with another clause. To understand this better, let's have a go at the two sentences and identify the independent and dependent clauses in each of them. First one, he likes to read books because they expand his knowledge. The first half, he likes to read books, has a complete thought, right? It has a subject, which is he, and a predicate, which is likes to read. Therefore, this is the independent or main clause. Even without the second half of the sentence, because they expand his knowledge, the independent clause can stand on its own. Okay? Now look at the second sentence example. Although she studied hard, she didn't pass the exam. Is the first part an independent or dependent clause? Although she studied hard, does this have a complete thought? Yes or no? It doesn't, because it doesn't make sense. So what if she studied hard? What now? What happens next? You don't really know. Hence, the first half is a dependent clause, meaning it needs the second half to complete its thought, right? Okay. So here you see the most common relative pronouns used in the English language. Similar to personal pronouns, relative pronouns are also categorized further into subjective, objective, and possessive. Subjective if it is the subject or what is being talked about in the sentence. Objective if it is the object or the receiver of the action. And possessive if it shows ownership, possession, or attribution. Now, some of these pronouns may be confusing to use. So in order to help you, let's walk through the proper use of each of them, okay? First up, that versus which. When and how do you use that? And when and how do you use which? That is used when the clause is specific and essential, meaning it's not just an additional information. It's really part of the main thought of the sentence. Meanwhile, which is used when the clause is generic and non-essential. When written, you need to use a comma before and after the clause introduced by which. To illustrate, here are some examples. In the first sentence, that is used because the clause introduced is specific and essential to the sentence. It explains the type of breakfast cereals that the speaker eats. And as you can see, no comma was used before or after the clause introduced by that. Now, let's take a look at the second sentence. She wore the necklace, which was her favorite, to the grand event. The clause, which was her favorite, is neither specific nor essential. That's why we use which instead of that. And take note that we separated the clause introduced by which with a comma before and after. Okay, now try working out the other two sentences yourselves. Is the difference clear now? I hope it is. If not, remember that you're always welcome to get in touch with us for your questions or clarifications. Seen on your screen are our contact information. Now going back to that, please take note of the following. That is used after the pronouns you see here. So you say, for example, Crab is all that he wants. You don't say, Crab is all which he wants. Yes? Same with the second example. The wedding coordinator always asks for every detail that may affect the ceremony. It's not every detail which may affect the ceremony. Also, that is used after the noun modified by an adjective in the superlative degree. Okay, so two things to review here. An adjective is a word that describes a noun or a pronoun. There are 3 degrees of comparison: positive, comparative, and superlative. Positive meaning there's no comparison made. Comparative meaning you show which of the two things or persons compared is or has more or less of the quality. And superlative shows the most or highest degree of the quality being compared. To understand this better, let's choose an adjective. How about fast? Positive degree is fast. Comparative degree is faster. and superlative degree is fastest. So fast, faster, and fastest. Another one, say strong. So it's strong, stronger, and strongest. Again, we use that after the noun described or modified by a superlative adjective, okay? For example, this is the best pasta that I have ever tasted. The superlative adjective is best and the noun modified is pasta. So following the rule, we use that. We don't say, this is the best pasta which I have ever tasted, okay? Moving on. Remember that we're still with relative pronouns, okay? We're just focusing on the proper use of the most common relative pronouns because a lot of people get confused. So we're done with that and which. Let's look at who and whom. Okay, so we use who for the subject and whom for the object in a sentence. By now, you know the difference between a subject and an object, am I right? Some examples here. Jimmy wondered who was calling him while he was driving. We used who because who refers to the doer of the action, and the action is calling. Next, our accountant, whom we engaged for over a decade, is a professional. Why did we use whom in this case? Because whom refers to the receiver of the action. The accountant was engaged or hired. He or she wasn't the one who hired someone else. You see the difference? I know it can be confusing. That's why you need to keep on learning and practicing. Now here's a tip to help you decide which one to use. Try answering the question, if it is a question, or substitute who or whom with a personal pronoun. Let's apply this to the two examples given here. First one, is it who or whom do you think is excited? Since this is a question, let's try to answer it using a personal pronoun. One with a subjective and the other with an objective pronoun. Okay, so option 1 is, I think she is excited. Option 2 is, I think her is excited. Which one is correct? You're right. Option 1 makes more sense. And since she is a subjective pronoun, we use who in the sentence. Therefore, the correct answer is, who do you think is excited? Next one. The lady who or whom we met was kind. Let's substitute then, okay? First is, we met she. And second is, we met her. Which one is correct? Yes, it is the second option. We met her. And as you probably remember, her is an objective pronoun. Therefore, the correct relative pronoun to use is whom. The lady whom we met was kind. Still a little confused? Don't worry, we have more exercises towards the end of the video. For now, we move on to whose. The rule is pretty straightforward with whose. If it's meant to show ownership or possession, we use whose, like in the sentences shown here. The woman whose car broke down called for roadside assistance. The woman owns the car and the car belongs to the woman. Note that in this sentence, as well as in the third sentence, we use commas before and after the clause introduced by whose. So we're done with relative pronouns. That was quite a long one, huh? Anyway, let's move on to reflexive pronouns. We use this type of pronoun when the subject and object in a sentence refer to the same person or thing, meaning it is both the doer and receiver of the action. You'll easily recognize reflexive pronouns because they end in self or selves, depending on whether the noun is singular or plural. If singular, we use myself, yourself, himself, herself, or itself. Please take note that there is no such word as his self, okay? It's himself, not his self. This is a very common mistake, so make sure not to use his self. And then for plural, we use ourselves, yourselves, or themselves. Okay, time for some examples. The players discussed among themselves for an hour. The noun here is players, right? It is plural, so we choose from among yourselves, ourselves, and themselves. Since this is in third person, we use themselves. Next, Harry copies his pal's work instead of doing it himself. So Harris is singular and male, therefore we use himself. Again, not his-self, yes? It's himself. Third, she hurt herself during the gymnastics routine. She is the noun, so the reflexive pronoun is yourself. Lastly, you can give yourself a pat on the back for a great job. The noun is you, so the reflexive pronoun is yourself. You can either be singular or plural, so the corresponding reflexive pronoun can either be yourself or yourselves. Let's move on to the next type of pronouns. They're called indefinite pronouns. Indefinite because they do not refer to a specific person or thing. They are used for general statements or when there's no precise information about the subject. Here are some of the common examples of indefinite pronouns: anybody, anyone, anything, and similar variants with no, every, and some. Also, each, all, either, neither, both, many, few, and most. Now for some examples. The first one reads, "Is there anything I can do to help you with your project?" What's the indefinite pronoun here? Yes, it's anything. Why was anything used instead of a specific task? Perhaps it's because the speaker doesn't know in particular what he or she can do to help. Another one, something is making my allergies act up. As you know, something is the indefinite pronoun used here. This means that the speaker doesn't know what specific substance triggered his or her allergy. Is everything clear so far? Yes? Okay, that's good. Now moving on. We now talk about interrogative pronouns. These are used to ask questions or get information, and there are 5 commonly used interrogative pronouns. I'm sure you know this already, but let's discuss still. The first 3 are all used for people. Who if it's the subject, whom if it is the object, and whose if it shows ownership or possession. So it's the same as what we learned earlier in the video. Now the next 2, both what and which, are for animals and things. They're not used for people, okay? And which is usually used when there are options given. How are interrogative pronouns used in a sentence? Well, it's simple. They're mostly used for questions, but they can also be found in simple sentences. Let's go over the examples here. Which of the books do you recommend? Which, because there are different books to choose from. Who is going to carry the bags? So the speaker wants to know the person responsible for carrying the bags. Since that person is the subject or the doer of the action, we use who. Now for whom. The third example reads, you should ask whom to call. Whom because you are referring to the person you will call. It is the object in the sentence or the receiver of the action. Hence, we use whom and not who. Next, I wonder what we're getting for his birthday. What? Because it pertains to a thing or present. Then for the last one, whose idea was it to include her? We used whose because we want to know the owner of the idea. Now it's your turn. Can you come up with your own sentences using the interrogative pronouns? Head on over to the comments to share them with us. Now ready for the last type of pronoun for this video? Good, I'm ready to. Let's talk about reciprocal pronouns. They're used to indicate a mutual action or relationship between 2 or more persons or things. So that means you do something to or for the other person, and the other person does the same to you. There are only 2 reciprocal pronouns in the English language, so it won't be difficult for you to remember them. Each other and one another. The only difference is that you use each other when you refer to 2 persons or things, and one another for more than 2 persons or things. That's basically the only rule to keep in mind. How do we use them in a sentence? Let's have a look here. The two sisters always share secrets with each other. Since it was specified that there are two sisters, we use each other. In the next example, the noun is kids. There's nothing that indicates that there are only two kids, so we assume that there are more than two. Therefore, we use one another. How about in the third sentence? Is there something that signals the count of the noun? That's correct. It says couple, right? So that means there are two persons involved. And that's why we used each other. The couple exchanged gifts with each other on their anniversary. And that ends our discussion on the different types of pronouns and their proper use. At this point, I'd like to encourage you to try and absorb and remember everything we've covered in this video. Take a break if you want, or pause this video for a few minutes. And when you come back, we'll proceed to the exercises. Okay, are you ready? Yes? Okay, good. And so, quiz time starts now. Good luck! Awesome job completing the exercises, you guys. How was it? Easy or a little hard? Anyway, you can always review this video if there are still some confusing points. Or you can message us for help and we'll be ready to answer your questions. Remember that we're with you every step of your English learning journey. And the Right Guide aims to guide you through your success from the classroom to the boardroom through good writing. Please subscribe to our channel. Again, it's the Right Guide. And like and share this video as well. See you again soon in our next videos, okay? Thanks and bye!